This is WAB's Week in Review, the show where we look at some of the recent stories from your WABE news team. I'm Alex Helmick. Coming up on the show, Georgia's Pathways to Coverage program gives Medicaid to some low-income adults if they prove they're working in school or volunteering 80 hours a month. Now advocates fear its red tape will be replicated under the new Trump budget, or the so-called One Big Beautiful Bill, law's national Medicaid work mandate.
People just can't get enrolled in the first place. And some folks who do get enrolled lose their coverage because the system thinks they didn't file their paperwork or there's been some other glitch.
Hear more about Georgia's experience with work requirements and what it could mean for Medicaid in the United States just minutes from now. First up, though, the head of MARTA abruptly stepped down this week because of his immigration status. The board of directors for Atlanta's transit system announced Thursday he's taking an early retirement. WABE's Melissa Fado had more.
Collie Greenwood is originally from Canada, having come to Atlanta from the Toronto Transit Commission. In a statement, a spokesperson said he left out of an abundance of caution because of complications related to his work permit and that he remains in the country legally. Greenwood was not at the board meeting because of his immigration status, said board chair Jennifer Ide.
Immigration is a very complicated issue in the United States today, but Mr. Greenwood needed to make the decision that was best for him and his family, and his MARTA family will miss him tremendously.
Greenwood became head of Atlanta's transit system, MARTA, in 2022, during what board members say was a chaotic time for the organization. Melissa Fado, WABE News.
Well, a prominent Georgia Republican is apologizing for an alleged Ponzi scheme that cost investors at least $140 million. WABE's Raul Bali had more on the now-closed First Liberty building and loan.
In a statement, Brant Frost IV says he takes full responsibility and will try to repay investors as much as he can. A federal judge has frozen his assets and appointed a receiver for the Noonan-based lending firm. Frost says he will cooperate with the receiver, whose job it will be to recover money for at least 300 investors. For now, Frost is only facing a federal civil lawsuit which accuses him and his firm of taking money from new investors to make payments to previous investors who thought they were getting payments from high-interest bridge loans made by First Liberty, while many of those loans had failed. Frost is also accused of using millions to buy jewelry for businesses connected to his family and political donations mainly to Republican candidates. Raul Bali, WABE News.
Georgia's physician shortage could grow worse because of changes to medical student loan programs under President Donald Trump's spending and tax bill that passed earlier this month. WAB's Jess Mador told us more from a recent physicians group report.
The new law caps the amount of money medical students can borrow over a lifetime at $200,000. That affects federal loan programs most med student borrowers use, according to the Association of American Medical Colleges. In the U.S., med school tuition totals into the hundreds of thousands of dollars, typically higher than the cap. The association warns the changes could potentially leave graduates with fewer borrowing options and more debt, and influence their ability to practice in rural areas, including in Georgia, where nearly all rural counties already have a doctor shortage. The changes take effect in the fall of next year. Jess Mador, WABE News.
Georgia leaders and education advocates are calling on Governor Brian Kemp to push for the release of federal funds for after-school and summer programs. As WABE's Mei Shu reported, the Trump administration is withholding around $200 million in previously approved education funding for Georgia.
The White House Office of Management and Budget is reviewing the funds after claiming the programs have been misused to promote a left-wing political agenda. Democratic State Senator Rashawn Kemp, no relation to the governor, disputes that claim.
This is not a partisan issue. This is a people issue. Georgia families can't wait. Georgia kids shouldn't be used as political pawns, and the future of 27,000 children is on the line.
He's calling for a special session for state lawmakers to provide more funding for after-school programs in the meantime. Georgia State Superintendent Richard Woods has also called for the release of the funds. Mei Shu, WABE News.
Well, an Atlanta area real estate lawyer says Immigration and Customs Enforcement is asking landlords to disclose tenants' personal information to ICE to find people to deport. WABE's Emily Wu Pearson explained.
The attorney told the Associated Press some of his clients received subpoenas from ICE requesting leases, rental applications, and ID cards for tenants and all people living with those on the lease. None of those subpoenas were signed by a judge, which is required for legal recourse. Landlords are allowed to ask about legal status to potential renters if they ask for the same information from every applicant, but legal status disclosure is not required by law on rental applications. The nonprofit think tank Migration Policy Institute estimates there are nearly 340,000 people without legal status in the state, with a majority of them living here for more than a decade. Emily Wu Pearson, WABE News.
Multiple rallies were held this week across Georgia and the United States in honor of the late Congressman and civil rights icon John Lewis. 5 years to the day he passed away, July 17th. WABE's Julian Virgin had more.
This is what democracy looks like!
On the 5th annual John Lewis National Day of Action, over 100 senior citizens lined the sidewalks in front of the Veteran Affairs Atlanta Regional Office, protesting against the Trump administration in Lewis's spirit.
I'm 88 years today. It's my birthday, but I wouldn't be anywhere else than out here making good trouble.
Joyce Myers-Brown holds a sign that reads, "No Kings."
To honor John Lewis, of course, and because we have got to let the powers that be at the moment know that there's not just a few of us.
The protest's demands include an end to the Trump administration's slashing of social programs, its rollback of federal civil rights and diversity initiatives, and crackdown on immigration. Julian Virgin, WABE News.
Trade publication Georgia Entertainment says the state's film industry is seeing an uptick in activity. As WABE's Marlon Hyde reported, some states are looking to adjust their tax credits to compete with Georgia.
Georgia film industry members remain confident the state will continue to adjust to attract film and TV productions, despite other states like California, Texas, and New York expanding their credits. A few months ago, Georgia reinstated its film and television post-production tax credit program to the delight of Elsa Johnson, the co-founder and chief operating officer of Undertone FX. It's a video game development company in Savannah.
We can recover probably around 30% of our costs, and that lets us put that back into the company in salaries and things like that. And, the better talent, the better innovations, the, better equipment.
C. Scott Vota heads the Georgia Film Academy. He believes the best way Georgia can remain competitive and invigorate the local film industry is by training Georgians.
And we're also working with many of the professionals here today to create a new post-production track in visual effects and creating, any kind of animation or visual effects that can be used in film, TV, new media, streaming, gaming, all of that.
The Georgia Film Academy is opening a new 32,000 square foot workforce training facility in the fall. Marlon Hyde, WABE News.
And a note of disclosure, WABE has received film tax credits from the state. The contests are now set for the only statewide races on the ballot this year in Georgia. As WABE's Molly Samuel reported, a runoff in a Democratic primary this week settled the last opening.
The only statewide elections this November are for 2 seats on the Georgia Public Service Commission. That's the powerful but relatively under-the-radar state agency that oversees utilities. Decisions by the 5 elected commissioners include how much people pay on their Georgia Power electric bills that have gone up repeatedly in the past few years. Democrat Peter Hubbard won a runoff this week. He'll face current commissioner, Republican Fitz Johnson, in November. The other race is Republican incumbent Tim Echols running against Democrat Alicia Johnson. PSC elections had been on hold for a few years while a voting rights case moved through the courts. With these races in November, the commission moves back towards regular elections. Molly Samuel, WABE News.
You're listening to WABE's Week in Review with me, Alex Helmick. I want to give a quick shout out. WABE won a whopping 10 Society of Professional Journalists Awards in the South region this month. So proud of this amazing team, and you can see their work at WABE.org. Now that the Republicans' big tax and spending bill has become law, there will be new bureaucratic hurdles for people on Medicaid. For the first time in most states and the District of Columbia, low-income adults will have to start meeting work requirements to keep their Medicaid coverage. Some states have tried this, but Georgia is the only one right now with a work requirement. It's been in effect for 2 years. WAB health reporter Jess Mador again, and she looks at how it's been going here in the state.
Tanisha Corporal isn't opposed to work requirements in principle, but then she left her job as a social worker to start her own nonprofit, and she came face to face with just how hard it is to meet work requirements.
I would have never thought that I was going to run into the challenges that I did with trying to get approved, because I'm like, I know the process.
Corporal had prediabetes and other medical concerns.
Because I have breast cancer in my family history, so it was like, I got to get my mammograms.
Then Corporal learned she qualified for Georgia's Pathways to Coverage program. It offers Medicaid to adults up to the federal poverty line if they can prove they're working, in school, or volunteering at least 80 hours a month. She was volunteering at least that much, so she gathered up her documents to verify her duties and hours and applied via the online portal.
And we were denied. I was like, this makes no sense. Like, I did everything right.
Corporal has a master's in social work, but even she ended up spending around 8 months fighting to get into the program, uploading documents only for them to bounce back or seemingly disappear in the portal. Denials and appeals. Here's just one of the denial letters she got.
Your case was denied because you didn't submit the correct documents and you didn't meet the qualifying activity requirement.
It was difficult reaching anyone at the state Medicaid agency to explain why.
Or they'll say they called you and we look at our call log. I'm like, nobody called me. And like the letter will say, you missed your appointment, and it'll come on the same day.
Corporal's application was finally approved only after she spoke about her experience at a public hearing covered by Atlanta news outlets. Now she has Medicaid, but she still has to recertify she's working or volunteering every month.
So yes, it's still a nightmare. Even once I got through the red tape and got approved, now maintaining it is bringing another level of anxiety.
Laura Colbert leads the advocacy group Georgians for a Healthy Future. She says Corporal's experience is typical.
People just can't get enrolled in the first place. And some folks who do get enrolled lose their coverage because the system thinks they didn't file their paperwork or there's been some other glitch.
She says reporting every month requires reliable internet access or transportation, both things low-income Georgians might not have. A spokesperson for Georgia's Department of Human Services said in an email that the state is rolling out a number of tech fixes to improve the process. Joan Alger is a health policy expert at Georgetown University. She says when Arkansas tried work requirements in 2018, it didn't go well. More than 18,000 people lost their coverage after failing to comply with the new requirements.
A lot of the problems were similar to Georgia in terms of the website closed at night. People couldn't get a hold of people.
And Alger points out national work requirements are unlikely to boost employment. More than 2/3 of Medicaid recipients already work anyway. The rest are mostly students or people too sick or disabled to work.
Work requirements don't work except to cut people off of health insurance.
And they cost a lot to implement. Georgia's been running Pathways to Coverage for 2 years. The enrollment system alone has cost more than $50 million. And right now, just under 7,500 people are enrolled. Jess Mador, WABE News.
Finally today, trails at the Chattahoochee River National Recreation Area are slated to get a facelift this year. WABE's Marissa Mecki brought us the story.
Just behind the Visitor Center and National Park Service offices at Island Ford Park, the trail begins.
It has just sustained so much erosion, mostly from water, but also from people, just coming down a trail.
That's Brittany Jones, the executive director of the nonprofit Chattahoochee National Park Conservancy. Jones says this trailhead has long been a cause of concern for park staff.
I've affectionately named it the Mess.
The Mess is a sideways slanted, wide trail with a mix of gnarly roots, wobbly rocks, and rolling ankles. Every time it rains, water flows down it in sheets, eroding away the trail. The Park Service finalized a plan in 2022 to do major maintenance on trails like this one. This year, the work begins, and Island Ford is up first. Jones says the trails here will go from about 4.8 miles to almost 7, giving folks more places to roam while making those trails more connected. And trail crews will rehab lots of trails in poor condition.
And we're focusing on healing the land and being more sustainable too.
Some trails will also be retired to let the land heal and nature to grow back, including the mess, which Jones says they're fixing by moving the trailhead a couple feet away. This project is estimated to cost about $500,000 to $750,000.
We really wanted to honor that we're in this piece of wilderness.
That means no paving and no new buildings. She says work will start after the summer busy season, not just to avoid disturbing visitors, but also animals like bats and coyotes that live in the park. All the upgrades are expected to wrap up by the end of the year. Marissa Mecki, WABE News.
That's all for the show this week. My thanks to the WABE News team, and thanks to all of you for supporting WABE. One more thing. Congress this week passed a rescission plan that takes billions of dollars in funding that was already approved away from many programs, including more than $1 billion from public media. The impact on WABE is about $1.9 million, or about 13% of the budget. If you're interested in helping and supporting WABE, even more than most of you already generously do, you can give to wabe.org/donate. I'm Alex Helmick. Thank you for listening to The Week in Review.